3 months had passed since Chaik exposed Amara's family at their own gathering, and life had settled into something Amara never thought possible: happiness. She woke each morning in a luxurious home in Lekki, still amazed that the man she'd married out of obligation had become the love of her life. Chaik had returned to light duties at the military intelligence unit, though he still attended regular physiotherapy sessions. His recovery was remarkable. The doctors said miraculous, even. But lately, Amara noticed something troubling. Chaik would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, muttering names she didn't recognize. When she asked about the nightmares, he'd simply kiss her forehead and say, "Just old war memories, my love." This particular Saturday morning, they were hosting a small gathering: Chaik's former commanding officer and a few trusted military friends. Amara had spent the morning preparing jollof rice, peppered snail, and chin-chin, wanting to make a good impression on the men who'd stood by Chaik during his coma. The guests arrived promptly at noon. Colonel Okonkwo, a barrel-chested man with a booming laugh, embraced Chaik like a son. 2 other officers followed, Major Adeyemi and Captain Nwachukwu. They settled in the spacious living room, and soon the air filled with military stories and laughter. Then the doorbell rang again. "Were you expecting anyone else?" Amara asked Chaik. His face darkened. "No." When Amara opened the door, she found herself face to face with a tall, lean man with a prominent scar running down his left cheek. His eyes were cold, calculating. He wore an expensive agbada, but something about it made Amara's skin crawl. "Is Colonel Chaik Okafor home?" the man asked, his voice smooth as oil. Before Amara could respond, she heard glass shatter behind her. She turned to see Chaik on his feet, his water glass in pieces on the floor. The color had drained from his face. "Ezekiel," Chaik breathed, and Amara had never heard such a mixture of shock and fury in her husband's voice. The scarred man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hello, old friend. Surprised to see me? You shouldn't be. After all, you're the one who woke up from the dead." Colonel Okonkwo stood abruptly, his hand moving instinctively toward his hip, where Amara suspected he usually carried a weapon. Major Adeyemi and Captain Nwachukwu flanked Chaik protectively. "You have some nerve showing your face here," Colonel Okonkwo growled. Ezekiel raised his hands in mock surrender, that unsettling smile never leaving his face. "I came in peace, I assure you. I heard about Chaik's miraculous recovery and thought I'd pay my respects. We were such close friends once, weren't we, Chaik? Before that unfortunate incident in Borno." Amara's heart pounded. Borno, that's where Chaik had been when the attack happened. The attack that left him in a coma for 2 years. "Get out of my house," Chaik said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Now." Of course," Ezekiel said, backing toward the door. "But before I go, I should mention, I ran into your wife's family recently. Such interesting people. Your Uncle Emeka, Amara, sends his regards. We had quite a lengthy conversation about old times." Amara felt ice flooding her veins. Her Uncle Emeka? The same uncle who'd orchestrated her humiliating marriage to Chaik? "What are you talking about?" Amara demanded. Ezekiel's smile widened. "Oh, you know, your family and I go way back. In fact, we have quite a bit of history together. Shared interests, you might say." He turned his attention back to Chaik. "I'll be seeing you around, old friend. Lagos is such a small city when you really think about it. People run into each other all the time, sometimes in the most unexpected places." The thread in his words was unmistakable. After Ezekiel left, the celebration was ruined. Colonel Okonkwo insisted on posting guards outside their house. Chaik remained silent, his jaw clenched so tight Amara feared he'd crack his teeth. That night, after their guests had left and the house was dark and quiet, Amara confronted her husband. "Who is he, Chaik? And what did he mean about my family?" Chaik sat on the edge of their bed, his head in his hands. When he finally looked up at her, his eyes were filled with a pain that broke her heart. "The ambush that put me in a coma wasn't random, Amara. I've suspected it for a while, but I couldn't prove it. But seeing Ezekiel today, hearing him mention your uncle," he took a shuddering breath. "I think your family didn't just humiliate you by forcing you to marry me. I think they tried to kill me first. The room spun around Amara. No, that's impossible. They're cruel and greedy, but they wouldn't. Ezekiel Okoro was my second-in-command in Borno. Chike continued, his voice hollow. He's the only one who knew our patrol route that day. The only one who could have told the insurgents exactly where to find us. 3 good men died in that ambush. Amara, and I should have died too. Amara sank onto bed beside him, her mind reeling. But why? What would my family gain from your death? That's what we're going to find out, Chike said grimly. Because if Ezekiel is working with your family, and if they orchestrated the attack that nearly killed me, then our marriage was never about humiliating you. It was about something much bigger, and much more dangerous. If you're shocked by this twist, just wait until you see what happens next. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to African Tales by Zion, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of this incredible story. Comment below what you think Amara's family is hiding. Amara barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ezekiel's scarred face and that menacing smile. More disturbing were the questions flooding her mind. Had her own family really conspired to murder Chike? And if so, why? By morning, she'd made a decision. While Chike met with Colonel Okonkwo at the military headquarters, Amara would do something she'd sworn never do again. She'd visit her family home. The house in Suralere looked smaller than she remembered, more run down. Paint peeled from the walls, and the compound that once seemed so grand now appeared shabby and neglected. Amara's mother, Ngozi, answered the door, her face registering shock at seeing her daughter. Amara, what are you doing here? I need to speak with Uncle Emeka, Amara said firmly, pushing past her mother. She found her uncle in the back room, hunched over a bottle of beer despite the early hour. He looked up as she entered, and something flickered in his eyes. Fear, perhaps? Well, Emeka slurred. The big madam has come to visit. Come to show off your fancy clothes and rich husband. I came to ask you about Ezekiel Okoro, Amara said, watching his reaction carefully. The blood drained from Emeka's face. He set down his beer bottle with a trembling hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Amara's voice rose. He came to my house yesterday. He said he knew you, that you had shared interests. Emeka stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. You need to leave. Now. But Amara stood her ground. What did you do, Uncle? What deal did you make with that man? You don't understand. Emeka's voice cracked. We didn't have a choice. The debts, the pressure. What debts? Amara demanded. Before Emeka could answer, her Aunt Chinyu burst into the room. Emeka, shut your mouth. She doesn't need to know. Doesn't need to know that you tried to have my husband killed? Amara's words hung in the air like thunder. Aunt Chinyu's face twisted with rage. Your husband? That man destroyed our family. Do you know what he did to us? He exposed your greed and cruelty. Amara shot back. That's what he did. No, Chinyu hissed. Before that, before the coma, your precious Chike ruined everything. Amara's mother appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. Chinyu, please, just tell her the truth. She deserves to know. Chinyu glared at Ngozi, but finally spoke. Fine. You want the truth, Amara? Your uncle and your father, God rest his soul, were involved in a business deal years ago. Import-export. Very profitable. What kind of imports? Amara asked, though she was beginning to dread the answer. The kind that needed to move through the Niger Delta without military interference. Emeka muttered. We had arrangements. Payments to certain officials. Everything was running smoothly until your husband's unit started a new anti-smuggling operation in the region. The pieces started falling into place in Amara's mind. You were smuggling, and Chike's military operations threatened your business. It wasn't just business, Chinyu snapped. We owed money to very dangerous people, people who didn't accept excuses. When Chike's unit intercepted 3 of our shipments in 2 months, we were ruined. The people we owed came for their money. We didn't have it. So you try to have him killed, Amara whispered, horrified. We didn't try to have anyone killed. Emeka protested. We connected with someone who could help. Ezekiel Okoro approached us, said he could make the problem go away. We thought he meant he'd get Chike transferred or reassigned. You're lying, Amara said coldly. You knew exactly what he meant. Aunt Chinyu's laugh was bitter. And what if we did? That righteous soldier husband of yours destroyed our lives. We lost everything because of him. So yes, we were happy when we heard about the ambush. Happy when he ended up in that hospital bed like a vegetable. Amara felt sick to her stomach. And the marriage? Forcing me to marry him while he was in a coma? That was Ezekiel's idea, her mother said quietly. He said it would give us legal claim to Chike's assets if he died, that we could recoup some of our losses. We never thought he'd wake up. You used me, Amara said, her voice shaking. You humiliated me and used me as part of your scheme to profit from murdering my husband. Don't act so high and mighty, Chinyu spat. You lived well enough off our money all these years. You enjoyed the benefits of our schemes. I was a child. I didn't know where the money came from. Amara backed toward the door. You're going to pay for what you've done. All of you. Emeka lunged forward and grabbed her arm. You can't tell anyone. If the authorities find out, if Ezekiel thinks we talked, Amara, these people will kill us. They'll kill you too. Amara wrenched her arm free. You should have thought of that before you conspired to murder a soldier. She fled the house, her heart pounding. Behind her, she heard Aunt Chinyu shouting, You're going to regret this. You think Chike is safe? You think you're safe? Ezekiel has eyes everywhere. He'll know you came here. He'll know you know. Amara didn't stop running until she reached her car. Her hands shook so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. As she pulled away from the curb, she saw movement in the rear-view mirror. A black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. It pulled out behind her. Someone had been watching the house. Watching her. Amara's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Curiosity killed the cat, Mrs. Okafor. You should have stayed in your golden cage. The black SUV accelerated, closing the distance between them. Amara pressed harder on the gas pedal, her breath coming in short gasps. She needed to get to Chike. She needed to warn him. Because if Ezekiel knew she'd talked to her family, if he knew she was uncovering the truth, neither of them was safe anymore. This story is getting more dangerous by the minute. What will Amara do now that she knows the truth? Can she escape whoever is following her? Like this video. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling me if you think Amara's family deserve forgiveness or punishment. Amara's fingers were white-knuckled on the steering wheel as she navigated through Lagos traffic, constantly checking her rear-view mirror. The black SUV stayed 2 cars behind her, following with menacing patience. Her phone rang, Chike's name flashing on the screen. Amara, where you? His voice was tight with worry. Colonel Okonkwo, just show me something. I need you to come to the house immediately, and I need you to make sure you're not being followed. I am being followed, Amara said, her voice cracking. Right now? A black SUV. Chike, I want to see my family. They admitted everything. She heard Chike curse in Igbo. Listen to me carefully. Do not try to lose them. That will only make them aggressive. Drive to the Palm shopping mall. It's crowded. Park in the main lot and go inside. Stay in public areas. I'm sending Captain Wachuku to get you. He's 10 minutes away. What about you? I'll meet you at home. We need to talk about what Colonel Okonkwo found. Amara, this is bigger than we thought. Much bigger. 20 agonizing minutes later, Amara sat in a crowded cafe inside the mall, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. The black SUV had indeed followed her to the parking lot, but whoever was inside hadn't emerged. They were waiting, watching. Captain Wachuku appeared, dressed in civilian clothes, but moving with unmistakable military bearing. Mrs. Okafor, we need to move quickly. I have men covering the exits. He led her through the mall's service corridors and out through a delivery entrance, where an unmarked car waited. As they drove away, Amara saw the black SUV still parked in the main lot. its occupants unaware their target had slipped away. At home, Chaik met her at the door, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Thank God you're safe. What were you thinking, going there alone?" "I needed answers," Amara said, "and I got them." Inside, Colonel Okonkwo was waiting with a laptop and several folders spread across the dining table. His expression was grim. "Tell me what you learned," Chaik said. Amara recounted her confrontation with her family, watching Chaik's face darken with each revelation. When she finished, he slammed his fist on the table. "Smuggling. Of course." He turned to Colonel Okonkwo. "Show her what you found." The colonel opened his laptop, displaying what appeared to be military intelligence reports. "After Ezekiel showed up yesterday, I started digging into his activities since the ambush. Officially, he resigned from the military 6 months after the attack, citing trauma. But look at this." He pulled up bank statements. 3 days after the ambush that put Chaik in a coma, Ezekiel received a deposit of 5 million naira. 2 weeks later, another 3 million. The payments continued monthly for the next year, always from different accounts. But I traced them. They all originated from a shell company called Delta Ventures Limited. "Let me guess," Amara said. "My family was involved with Delta Ventures." "Not just involved," Colonel Okonkwo said. "Your late father and uncle were listed as silent partners. But here's what's interesting. Delta Ventures wasn't just smuggling regular goods. They were moving weapons. Specifically, military-grade weapons stolen from army depots and sold to militant groups in the Delta region." Chaik's voice was ice. "Ezekiel was selling our own weapons to the people we were fighting. And when I started cracking down on smuggling routes, I became a problem." "It gets worse," Colonel Okonkwo continued. "I contacted some friends in intelligence. Ezekiel didn't just disappear after leaving the military. He built an empire. He's now one of the biggest illegal arms dealers in West Africa. And he's protected by politicians, corrupt military officials, even some international players who find his services useful." Amara felt the room spinning. But if he's so powerful, why hasn't he been arrested? "Because everyone he could testify against is even more powerful," Chaik said bitterly. "He's untouchable as long as he has leverage over the right people." "There's more," Colonel Okonkwo said quietly. "Show her the photos, Chaik." Chaik pulled out his phone, his jaw clenched. He showed Amara a series of surveillance photos taken over the past 2 months. Her Uncle Emeka meeting with Ezekiel at a hotel. Aunt Chinyu getting into Ezekiel's car. And most disturbing, a photo from 3 weeks ago showing Ezekiel and her cousin Adana having dinner at an expensive restaurant in Victoria Island. "Adana?" Amara gasped, but she wasn't even involved in the original scheme. She was studying abroad when all this happened. "She's involved now," Chaik said. "According to my sources, she returned to Nigeria 6 months ago. She's been working directly for Ezekiel, helping him launder money through a chain of beauty salons and boutiques." Amara thought back to the family gathering where Chaik had exposed her relatives. Adana had been there, quiet in the corner, seeming almost sympathetic. Had it all been an act? "Why are you showing me this?" Amara asked, though she feared she knew the answer. "Because your family didn't just make one deal with Ezekiel years ago," Chaik said gently. "They're still working with him. And now that I'm awake and asking questions, I'm a threat again, which means they'll try to kill you again," Amara finished. "And this time, they'll make sure you don't wake up." "Not just me," Chaik said, taking her hands. "You too, Amara. You know too much now. They saw you at the family house today. Ezekiel's people were watching. He knows you've uncovered the truth." As if on cue, Chaik's phone buzzed. An email from an unknown sender with no subject line. He opened it, and Amara watched the color drain from his face. He turned the phone so she could see. It was a photo taken from a high-powered camera, Amara and Chaik standing in their living room at that exact moment, visible through their front window. The message below the photo read, "Nice security you have, soldier. Would be a shame if something happened despite it. Let's talk. Tomorrow. Alone. Or the next photo will be taken at your wife's funeral." Colonel Okonkwo was already on his phone, barking orders. "Lock down this location. Full perimeter. I want eyes on every approach. But Chaik was staring at the photo, his tactical mind working. He want me to come alone. That means he's planning an ambush. You can't seriously be considering meeting him, Amara said. I don't have a choice. Chaik's voice was steady, but Amara could see the fear in his eyes. Not for himself, but for her. If I don't show up, he'll come here, and I won't risk your life. Then we go to the police, Amara insisted. We have evidence, bank statements, photos, evidence that implicates powerful people who will make it all disappear, Colonel Okonkwo said. And even if some of it sticks, how long do you think the legal process will take? Months? Years? Ezekiel won't wait that long. Chaik pulled Amara close. I'm going to meet him, but not the way he expects. We're going to set our own trap. How? Amara asked. A dangerous smile crossed Chaik's face. By giving him exactly what he wants. Me, alone and vulnerable. Or so he'll think. Colonel Okonkwo nodded slowly, understanding. You want to draw him out. He's been hiding behind intermediaries and shell company for years, Chaik said. But he's arrogant enough to come after me personally. That's his weakness. We use it. Amara grabbed Chaik's arm. And what if something goes wrong? What if this is exactly what he wants? To lure you into the open? Chaik cupped her face in his hands. Then I need you to promise me something. If this goes badly, you take all this evidence and you run. Colonel Okonkwo has contacts in the international press. You expose everything, no matter who it brings down. No, Amara said fiercely. We're in this together. You don't get to play hero and leave me behind. I'm not leaving you behind, Chaik said softly. I'm trying to keep you alive. Through the window, Legos stretched out before them, millions of lights in the darkness, each one representing a life, a story, a choice. Somewhere out there, Ezekiel Okoro was planning their deaths. Somewhere out there, Amara's family was complicit in evil she couldn't have imagined. And somewhere in the shadows of the city, the truth waited to be dragged into the light, even if it cost them everything. The stakes have never been higher. Will Chaik's plan work, or is he walking into a death trap? Smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the explosive next chapter. Comment below. Should Amara let Chaik go alone, or should she fight by his side? See you in the next chapter. The meeting location came through an encrypted message at dawn, an abandoned warehouse in Apapa, near the docks. Chaik read it aloud to the team assembled in their living room. Colonel Okonkwo, Major Adeyemi, Captain Wachukwu, and 2 intelligence officers Amara had never met before. It's perfect ambush terrain, Major Adeyemi observed, studying satellite images of the location. Multiple entry points, shipping containers for cover, water access for escape. If Ezekiel wanted to kill you and dispose of the body, this is exactly where he'd choose. Which is why we'll get there first. Chaik said, we have 6 hours to prepare. Amara had been relegated to observer status, something that made her blood boil. But she stayed quiet, listening as the men planned. We'll position snipers here and here. Colonel Okonkwo pointed to buildings flanking the warehouse. Captain Wachukwu, you'll have a team in the water, just in case he tries to escape by boat. Major Adeyemi, you'll be inside the warehouse before Chaik arrives, hidden among the containers. What about backup? One of the intelligence officers asked. If Ezekiel brings the kind of firepower, I think we'll need more bodies. Can't risk it, Chaik said. Too many people, and he'll spot the trap. We keep it tight, small team, highly trained. And what about my family? Amara finally spoke up. Ezekiel won't come alone. If he's as connected to them as you say, they might be involved. The room fell silent. Colonel Okonkwo cleared his throat. We have surveillance on your family's house. If any of them move, we'll know. That's not what I asked. Amara pressed. If they show up at that warehouse, if they're part of whatever Ezekiel is planning, what happens to them? Chaik met her eyes. Whatever needs to happen. The words hung heavy in the air. These were her blood relatives, people she'd grown up with. But they'd also tried to have her husband murdered. They'd used her as a pawn in their criminal enterprise. They'd threatened her life. I want to be there, Amara said suddenly. Absolutely not, Chaik and Colonel Okonkwo said in unison. You're not trained for combat situations, Chaik continued. It's too dangerous. My entire life has become a combat situation, Amara shot back. These people are targeting me too, Chaik. I have a right to see this through. She has a point, Captain Wachuku said quietly. And actually, sir, she might be useful. All eyes turned to him. Think about it, the captain continued. Ezekiel wants Chaik isolated and vulnerable. But what if Chaik brings his wife? What if it looks like Amara discovered something, panicked, and convinced Chaik they should negotiate? It makes the scenario more believable. Ezekiel would expect Chaik to bring Amara if he thought she was in immediate danger. Chaik shook his head vehemently. No, I won't use her as bait. You're not using me, Amara said. I'm volunteering. Captain Wachuku is right. My presence makes the whole thing more credible. Ezekiel knows I went to see my family yesterday. He'd expect me to be terrified, to convince you to try to make some kind of deal. And if shooting starts? Chaik demanded. Then I stay in the car, away from the line of fire, with Captain Wachuku guarding me. Amara said. She turned to the captain. Right. He nodded. I'll treat her protection as my primary mission. Chaik looked at Colonel Okonkwo, who stroked his chin thoughtfully. It does add a layer of authenticity. And if we position the car correctly, she'd actually be in one of the safer positions, behind armor, away from direct sight lines. This is insane, Chaik muttered, but Amara could see he was considering it. You need every advantage you can get. Amara pressed. Let me help. Finally, Chaik nodded. But you stay in the vehicle, no matter what happens. Promise me. I promise. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Amara was fitted with a bulletproof vest under her clothes and given a crash course in basic security protocols. The team moved out in stages, careful not to draw attention. By late afternoon, everyone was in position. Amara sat in the back of an armored SUV with Captain Wachuku, parked 50 meters from the warehouse entrance. Through the tinted windows, she could see Chaik standing alone in the open area in front of the warehouse, exactly as Ezekiel had demanded. Radio check. Colonel Okonkwo's voice came through the hidden earpiece Amara wore. All positions report. One by one, the team confirmed they were ready. Snipers in position. Major Adeyemi hidden inside the warehouse. Backup team staged 2 minutes away. They waited. At precisely 6 p.m., 3 vehicles approached. 2 black SUVs and a silver Mercedes. Amara's breath caught as the cars parked and doors opened. Ezekiel emerged from the Mercedes, flanked by 4 armed men. But what made Amara's blood run cold was who climbed out of the SUVs. Her Uncle Emeka, Aunt Chinyu, and her cousin Adana. Well, Ezekiel called out, his voice carrying across the open space. The dead man walks, and he brought his lovely wife. I see. How touching. Through the earpiece, Colonel Okonkwo whispered, Hold positions. Wait for my signal. Chaik stood his ground. You wanted to talk. So talk. Ezekiel laughed. Always so direct, Chaik. That's what I liked about you. Before you became inconvenient, of course. He gestured to Amara's family members. I believe you know everyone here. We've all been working together. One big, happy family. You're all under surveillance, Chaik said. Every word of this conversation is being recorded. If anything happens to me, that recording goes to military intelligence, the international press, and the ICC. Bluffing doesn't suit you, soldier, Ezekiel said. But Amara noticed his eyes scanning the surrounding buildings. It's not a bluff, Chaik continued. I have bank records linking you to arms trafficking. Testimony placing you at the scene of the ambush. Communications between you and the Okonkwo family detailing your conspiracy. It's over, Ezekiel. Aunt Chinyu stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. You self-righteous fool. You destroyed our livelihood, and now you want to destroy what we built to survive. You built it on blood, Chaik shot back, on weapons that killed innocent people, on betraying your own country. Country? Uncle Emeka spat. What has this country ever done for us? We took what we needed to survive. That's all. Adana had been quiet, but now she spoke, her voice cold and calculating. This is boring. Ezekiel, can we just finish this? I have dinner plans. Ezekiel's smile widened. Patience, my dear. I want Chike to understand something first. You see, soldier, you did ruin our business in the Delta, cost us millions. But you also did us a favor. You forced us to evolve, to think bigger. He gestured expansively. We're not just smugglers anymore. We're power brokers. We move weapons to 3 different insurgent groups. We have politicians in our pocket from Lagos to Abuja. We even have friends in the military. Isn't that right, Colonel? Amara's blood froze. Was Ezekiel suggesting Colonel Okonkwo was compromised? But then another voice rang out, not from the warehouse, but from one of Ezekiel's own SUVs. That's enough. A man stepped out, wearing a brigadier general's uniform. Amara recognized him from news broadcasts. Brigadier General Okoro, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Nigerian army. And as he stood beside Ezekiel, smiling that same cold smile, Amara realized with horror that they shared more than just a similar smile. They had the same scar on their left cheeks. Allow me to introduce my brother, Ezekiel said. I believe you know Brigadier General Okoro, Chike. He's been following your career with great interest, especially since you woke up from that unfortunate coma. In her ear, Amara heard Colonel Okonkwo curse. We have a problem. If the Brigadier General is involved, this goes higher than we thought. Much higher. Chike's voice remained steady, but Amara could see the tension in his shoulders. So that's how you've stayed untouchable. Your brother provides military protection. Among other things, the Brigadier General said. But you become a problem, Captain Okafor. A problem we need to eliminate. Permanently this time. Ezekiel's men raised their weapons. Now! Colonel Okonkwo shouted through the radio. Everything happened at once. Red laser dots appeared on the chests of Ezekiel's gunmen. Major Adeyemi burst from the warehouse, weapon drawn. Captain Nwachukwu threw open the SUV door, shielding Amara with his body. But Brigadier General Okoro merely smiled and raised a radio to his lips. Execute contingency plan. Suddenly, military trucks roared into the area. Not Colonel Okonkwo's men, but soldiers loyal to the Brigadier General. Dozens of them, surrounding the position. They were outnumbered 10-1. Stand down, the Brigadier General commanded. By order of military command, you're all under arrest for conspiracy and treason. Through the chaos, Amara's eyes met Chike's across the distance. In that moment, she saw something she'd never seen before in her husband's eyes. Fear that they might actually lose. No way. The conspiracy goes all the way to the top. How will Chike and Amara escape this impossible situation? Subscribe to African Tales by Zion and turn on notifications because next chapter is going to blow your mind. Comment below. Who do you think is the real villain here? Don't miss what happens next. Don't move. Brigadier General Okoro's soldiers surrounded the area, weapons trained on Chike, Colonel Okonkwo's team, and everyone else. Amara's heart hammered in her chest as Captain Nwachukwu held her down in the SUV. This is over, Chike, Ezekiel said, swagger returning to his voice. You're going to disappear, along with everyone who helped you. And this time, there will be no miraculous recovery. But Chike didn't look defeated. Instead, a slight smile crossed his face. You're right about one thing, Ezekiel. This is over, but not the way you think. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The sound of helicopter blades filled the air. Not one helicopter. 3. Military attack helicopters descended from the darkening sky, searchlights illuminating the entire warehouse area like daylight. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker. This is Colonel Amadi of the Department of Military Intelligence. Brigadier General Okoro, you and your men are ordered to stand down immediately. This operation is under the direct authority of the Defense Headquarters. Brigadier General Okoro's face went pale. Impossible. I have clearance from your co-conspirators? Another figure emerged from the lead helicopter as it touched down, a stern woman in the uniform of a major general. Amara recognized her from television. Major General Fumi Adelik, the recently appointed head of military intelligence and the highest-ranking female officer in the Nigerian army. She strode forward, a tablet in her hand. Brigadier General Okoro, you are under arrest for arms trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, abuse of military authority, and treason. Your brother Ezekiel Okoro is under arrest for the same charges, plus the murder of 3 soldiers in the Borno ambush 2 years ago. Ezekiel's eyes darted between the helicopters and his brother, calculating. You have no proof. Don't we? Major General Adelik turned the tablet, so everyone could see. It displayed a video conference screen, and on it sat a familiar face that made Aunt Chinyu gasp. Adana, but not the Adana standing beside Ezekiel. This was a recording, time-stamped from 3 hours earlier. My name is Adana Okonkwo, the recorded Adana said, and I am here to confess to my involvement in a criminal conspiracy involving illegal arms trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and corruption of military officials. The Adana standing in the warehouse compound went rigid. Uncle Emeka started backing away. You see, Major General Adelik explained, Miss Adana approached military intelligence 6 months ago. She'd been working undercover, gathering evidence against Ezekiel Okoro and his network. Every meeting, every transaction, every conversation recorded. You lying little. Ezekiel lunged toward Adana, but Colonel Okonkwo's men were faster, restraining him. Amara's mind reeled. Adana? An undercover operative? The quiet cousin she'd barely noticed had been the key to bringing down the entire conspiracy? But why? Aunt Chinyu wailed. Adana, we're your family. The real Adana spoke for the first time, her voice hard. You stopped being my family when you had my father killed. The entire compound went silent. What? Uncle Emeka's voice cracked. You thought I didn't know, Adana continued, tears streaming down her face. You thought I believed the story about Dad's car accident 3 years ago. But I knew. I found the insurance payout that went to Ezekiel. I found the messages between you and him, planning it. My father wanted out of the smuggling operation. He was going to confess. So you had him murdered and made it look like an accident. Amara felt like the ground was falling away beneath her. Her father, Adana's father, murdered by his own family? We didn't have a choice. Chinyu screamed. He was going to ruin everything. We would have gone to prison. So you killed him, Adana's voice broke. And then you used his daughter. Used me to help launder money through my boutiques. Thinking I was too stupid or too greedy to figure out what you'd done. But I knew. And I spent the last 6 months making sure you all pay for it. Major General Adelik gestured to her soldiers. Take them into custody. All of them. As soldiers moved to arrest Ezekiel, his brother, and Amara's family members, chaos erupted. Uncle Emeka tried to run and was tackled. Aunt Chinyu collapsed, weeping. Brigadier General Okoro maintained his military bearing, but his face was ashen. Ezekiel, however, had one last card to play. If I'm going down, he snarled, I'm taking everyone with me. You think this ends with us? He raised his voice so everyone could hear. I have files. Names of every politician, every military official, every businessman who ever bought from us or protected us. Release me or I release everything. You mean these files? Major General Adelik pulled out a USB drive. Recovered from your office this morning during a simultaneous raid. Very thorough record keeping, I must say. We've already begun making arrests in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. 16 officials in custody so far. By morning, it will be 50. Ezekiel's face transformed from confident to desperate. You can't do this. I have protection. I have friends and... You had friends, the Major General corrected, until they realized you kept records of all their crimes. Funny how quickly people abandon you when you become a liability. As Ezekiel was dragged away, still screaming threats, Amara finally emerged from the SUV. Her legs shook as she walked toward Chaik, who met her halfway and pulled her into his arms. It's over, he whispered into her hair. It's finally over. You knew, Amara said, pulling back to look at him. You knew about Adana. Chaik nodded. Colonel Okonkwo was contacted by military intelligence 2 weeks ago. They'd been building their case, but needed the key players in one place. Today was never about me meeting Ezekiel alone. It was about drawing out everyone involved, including the Brigadier General. We knew he wouldn't be able to resist showing up to witness my demise. Colonel Okonkwo joined them, exhausted but satisfied. We had to keep you in the dark about Adana, Amara. We couldn't risk Ezekiel suspecting anything. The fewer people who knew, the better. Adana approached slowly, her eyes red from crying. I'm sorry, Amara. Sorry for deceiving you. Sorry for what our family did to you. Amara didn't know what to say. This woman had just brought down a criminal empire and avenged her father's murder. But she was also family. Twisted, broken family, but family nonetheless. You were brave, Amara finally said. Braver than I could have been. I had to be, Adana replied. For my father. For everyone they hurt. She paused. I testified against them. All of them. They're going to prison for a very long time. Good, Amara said, and meant it. Major General Adelik approached. Captain Okafor, Mrs. Okafor, I want to thank you for your cooperation in this operation. And Captain, I have news. Given your exemplary service and the heroism you've shown in bringing this conspiracy to light, you're being promoted to Major, effective immediately. You'll also be receiving a commendation. Chaik saluted. Thank you, ma'am. But I should tell you, I'm considering leaving active duty. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Sir, Colonel Okonkwo said. Chaik looked at Amara, then back at his commanding officers. I spent 2 years in a coma. I almost died because I was so focused on my duty that I didn't see the danger right next to me. I woke up to find I'd been given a second chance, and a wife I never expected to love. I think it's time I focus on living, not just fighting. Major General Adelik smiled. I understand, Major. The military will miss you. But after what you've been through, you've earned the right to choose your own path. As the sun set over Lagos, Amara and Chaik stood together watching the arrests, watching justice finally being served. Ezekiel, his brother, Uncle Emeka, Aunt Chinyu, and a dozen others were loaded into military vehicles. By morning, the news would spread across the nation, one of the biggest corruption and arms trafficking busts in Nigerian history. What do we do now? Amara asked. Chaik pulled her close. Whatever we want. We're free. Amara, really free. No more looking over our shoulders. No more wondering if your family will strike. No more conspiracy. Just us, Amara said. Just us, Chaik agreed. 3 months later, Amara stood in the garden of their new home in Ikoyi, watching Chaik plant roses. He'd left the military as promised, and they'd used part of his savings to start a security consulting business. It was honest work, helping companies protect themselves without the constant danger of active duty. Adana visited regularly. She'd received immunity for her cooperation and was testifying at trial after trial, systematically dismantling the entire criminal network. The boutiques she'd used for money laundering had been seized, but she didn't seem to care about the money. She cared about justice. I got a letter today. Amara told Chaik over dinner that evening. From my mother. Chaik's expression darkened. What did it say? She's in prison awaiting trial. She says she's sorry, that she wishes she protected me instead of going along with Emeka and Chinyu. Amara set the letter down. She wants me to visit. Will you? Amara thought for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her that sorry isn't enough, that she stood by while they tried to kill you, while they used me. But another part of me remembers that she was the only one who tried to tell me the truth that day at the house. She was weak, but she wasn't evil, not like the others. It's your choice, Chaik said gently. Whatever you decide, I support you. That night, Amara dreamed of her father. Not the man she thought he was, but the real man Adana had described. A man who'd gotten in too deep, made terrible mistakes, but ultimately tried to do the right thing and paid for it with his life. She woke with tears on her face and a decision in her heart. 2 weeks later, Amara sat across from her mother in a prison visiting room. Ngozi looked smaller somehow, diminished by her circumstances. "Thank you for coming," her mother whispered. "I'm not here to forgive you," Amara said clearly. What you all did, was unforgivable." Her mother's face crumpled. "But," Amara continued, "I'm here to tell you that I'm moving forward with my life. I'm happy. I'm married to a good man who loves me, and I'm not going to let what you did poison my future." "I understand," Ngozi said. "And Amara, I am truly sorry. I know it's not enough, but I am." Amara stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "If you really mean that, Mom, then use your time in prison to become someone different, someone better. Maybe someday we can talk again, but that's up to you." She walked out into the sunlight, where Chaik waited by the car. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," Amara said, and realized it was true. Finally free. They drove home through Lagos traffic, the city sprawling around them in all its chaotic beauty. Somewhere in this city, Ezekiel and his co-conspirators sat in prison cells. Somewhere, Adana was rebuilding her life. Somewhere, justice was being served. But here, in this car, with her husband hand in hers and their whole future ahead of them, Amara Okafor had everything she needed. She'd been forced to marry a comatose soldier, to be humiliated, but she'd ended up with love, justice, and a second chance at life. And that, she thought as Chaik smiled at her, was the best revenge of all. Wow, what an incredible ending. Justice was served, love conquered all, and Amara got the happy ending she deserved. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion so you never miss another amazing story. Drop a comment telling me what you thought of this 2-part epic. Should there be a part 3 showing their new life? Share this video with someone who loves powerful stories of justice and redemption. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, this is African Tales by Zion, reminding you that even in the darkest situations, truth and love will always prevail. God bless you.